Why you might sabotage a relationship with a good man. This seems to be a common tale. So we're going to dive into this today at a more granular level than just the surface level. And now let me start by saying relationships are not for the faint of heart in today's world. We no longer need transactional or dependent relationships. We no longer necessarily need a companionship-based relationship, that there's something deeper that relationships are called to do for both individuals. And I believe to some degree, the reason why romantic relationships can be the most what's the word I'm looking for? Confrontational, if you will. That's not the right word, is because sadly, we human beings enter into relationship a little bit broken, a little bit hurt, and these are just some of the challenges that we're experiencing in the dating environment today. So why would a woman sabotage a relationship with a good man? We're going to get into this a little bit. Now, one of the things I've observed is that for those of us in midlife, since my audience is predominantly midlife, I just want to spend 1 second talking about that, because if you're in your 20s and 30s, oftentimes a woman is looking for a solid, good man to be the father of their children. It's just this gets more complicated for those of us in midlife, predominantly because 75% of singles are divorced. And within divorce comes a lot of complications, a lot of obstacles that could be in the way. But one of the things I've noticed with women, particularly with good men, and by the way, this is true with men with good women, is that they sense these people are rather boring. They're rather boring because they're not triggering our stuff. So if you're not familiar with love attachment style, I highly recommend reading the book Learning Love by Thais Gibson to understand secure and insecure attachment styles. Why women particularly sabotage relationships with good men is oftentimes the man is a secure love attachment style and the woman is insecure. Oftentimes, usually they're only one of these three: anxious, preoccupied, fearful, avoidant, or dismissive, avoidant. Has anyone watched the show Nobody Wants This on Netflix? I believe Noah represents a good man. He's kind of cute too, but he's a good man. And she is a little bit neurotic, and her neurosis almost sabotaged the relationship. For what I'm about to share in just a moment, you're going to want to hear these 3 points that I'm about to share to understand why this happens. Now, sometimes we sabotage good relationships because we have an obstacle in our way, See, certainly in midlife, one of the gigantic obstacles oftentimes is we're meeting total strangers that don't live in our proximity, live in our immediate proximity, if you will. Distance can be one of the challenges in relationship, and making time based on distance is one of the obstacles or way people sabotage relationship, is they don't make significant time. Now, they might not have the time for a relationship, but then ask yourself, why would you enter into something if distance is involved and you don't have the time? But Jonathon, if we love each other, we can make anything work out. If we love each other, every single obstacle on the planet can be solved. Folks, getting to a deep level of love requires hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of face-to-face time. And if these obstacles exist, it's going to be difficult. And you might be with a good man, but you're not prepared based on what I'm about to share in a moment. Now, certainly those of us in midlife, many of us, or at least I was, raising children. That could be one of our challenges. Blending lives with one another. Lifestyle differences can come into play. A mismatch in love languages. You could be in a good relationship with a man whose love language is acts of service and yours is words. And because you're not communicating effectively to one another, you're not healing that space of differences between one another. I've certainly noticed in our environment here in the United States, religious and political differences can oftentimes be a challenge. Those of us who live in Los Angeles, health differences can be a challenge because some people value health, at least here in Los Angeles, I've noticed, radically different than other parts of the country. Certainly our physical type or our sexual type can get in the way. It can sabotage a relationship if you're not experiencing the kind of significant sexual experience you want. You could sabotage a relationship with a good man. And by the way, those of us in midlife men, look at, we're faced with the biological challenges. We can't get the equipment up like we used to. It effing sucks. A smart man takes a blue pill. A lot of men try to act stoic in this way, which oftentimes doesn't help. But this can be, you could be with a good man, but your sexual preferences could be different. And again, I'm going to talk about something in a moment that causes these blocks to these sabotaging experiences because we don't honestly go deeper than the surface in many circumstances. I'm going to share with you midlife relationships. Also, I've noticed those in their 20s and 30s, they're oftentimes making babies and raising a family. That's their passion, making babies and raising a family. For midlife, oftentimes couples don't know what their shared passion is together. What is that one shared passion that bridges the two together? And because you're not having these deeper conversations, these radically honest conversations to get to know another human being at a deeper level, it's no wonder we're sabotaging good relationships. And again, oftentimes the good person is the secure person, and we have an insecure person who isn't opening up emotionally. And by the way, ladies, I know you talk about communication as being so radically important, but I'm going to share with you, many of you struggle expressing your needs, wants, and desires in a relationship. We're going to talk about that in a second as well. So I want to invite you all to look at understanding the complexities and the mechanics of a healthy, happy relationship. I haven't spoken about this book in a while, but I invite you to read the book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships, the 5 Keys to Meaningful Love. This will help you become more secure in the way you operate, in the way you date going forward, when you understand the mechanics to a healthy, happy relationship. I think this is one of the fundamental challenges most humans experience is they don't know what they want. But Jonathon, I know what I want. I know what I want. I know what I want. Relationship. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. As a dating relationship coach, women come to me all the time saying they know what they want. Then they go through my proprietary coaching program. And can you guess what they say every single time afterwards? Why didn't they teach me this in school? Why didn't my parents teach me this? Why didn't I learn this before I married the wrong person? By the way, there's a link below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. I can tell you from personal experience, after tens of thousands of hours of coaching, the reason why we sabotage good relationships is we're not crystal clear on who is really compatible with us. And more importantly, asking those radically honest questions, excuse me, early on. But Jonathon, I'm just supposed to sit in my feminine energy and let men claim me because that's the way I've been taught. It's always the man is the leader of a relationship. Ladies, you are in charge of your relationship destiny. Don't give that up to a man because you don't know if he's a good man yet in many cases. It's your job to decipher his emotional maturity, his capacity to share your same values, and more importantly, can his lifestyle blend in with yours? And understanding the love languages at a much deeper level, I will tell you that women sabotage good relationships because they're not speaking. The man isn't speaking your love language, but he doesn't know what it is. And so a lot of times, ladies, you expect us men to be mind readers. We're not capable of that. So there's 3 areas I've noticed women oftentimes sabotage relationships. Number 1 is projections. They project onto the relationship. Now, projection is making up a story about another human being. I'll give you an example. You notice that they didn't give a big tip. Okay, I'm just giving you a crude example. On a date. Oh, he must be cheap. That's a story. That's not a fact. That's a projection. You might have experienced pain in your last relationship, and oftentimes people project that pain that they've had onto someone else, and it creates a wedge in relationship. Oftentimes we have childhood wounds and traumas that play a huge role. I try to give you a very benign version of a projection versus those deeper projections. Let me give you one of the predominant projections women oftentimes face. If you haven't read the book, Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendricks and Helen Hunt, there's a link below to get the books I recommend. We oftentimes choose a partner similar to one of both of our parents. We project this hurt and pain, and we're looking to, what happens is we humans, it's known as the imago, the mirror imaging. We choose someone like both one of our parents to heal this pain by revisiting the pain over and over and over again. I believe relationships trigger our number one emotional health issue. Hey, 1111 on the screen. I think relationships trigger our number one emotional health issue is I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not likable. And we project all of this. We are here in the United States, we are suckling on the nipple of I need you to love me so I can feel good about myself. We have a distressing lack of self-love in our current environment. This is my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. There's a link below to get a copy of my book. I think we project a lot of our traumas and I will say this, particularly divorced men and women, project a lot of the pain in their past relationships onto every new relationships. And we might sabotage a really good person because we're still unhealed from our past traumas, whether it's childhood, whether it's adult. And I got to tell you something. Divorce is an extremely traumatic experience. It can take decades to heal from that. It's not relationships, as I started this conversation, is not for the faint of heart. We are going to be butting up against our stuff with good people. And actually, out of fairness to the good person, you might not be right for them. Let me repeat that. For that good person, you might not be right for them. You may not be ready for a significant relationship because number two, and this is where I see so many men and women fail, centers around healthy communication. If you haven't read the book, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, reason why it's called nonviolent, we oftentimes communicate in a very confrontational way instead of a compassionate way. This book is all about compassionate communication, taking responsibility for our triggers, and then not blaming the other person for our triggers, but more importantly, communicating what might hurt, that ouch, in a healthy way. And more importantly, and this is so critically important, ladies, I witness you do this frequently. You don't identify what your emotions and your needs are, and then to be able to articulate it in a compassionate way. Oftentimes it's in a confrontational way, and you can sabotage a good relationship with a man if you have confrontational communication. If it's blaming without looking, that we have three fingers pointing back to us every time we point a finger at someone. Sadly, healthy. By the way, there's another book I'm going to recommend you get. All the books. I Hear You, the surprisingly simple skills behind extraordinary relationships. When you have effectively begin to experience healthy communication, when you can communicate in a way that can be seen, heard, and understood, you bridge the gap from the lack of emotional intimacy into emotional intimacy with another person. And I'm here just to encourage. I'm just here to scream at the top of my lungs. Do this inner work so you can actually find yourself in a juicy, delicious, healthy, happy relationship. And sadly, the third thing I want to share today are our blocks to love. Our subconscious fears take over when we connect with another human being, it's very common to fear abandonment, and we will sabotage relationships with good people so they don't abandon us. It's a very common tale. It happens frequently. Sabotaging could be little criticisms that occur, acting with contempt, getting defensive, or maybe stonewalling. John Gottman talks about this, not in this book, but I highly recommend reading the book 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman. But I invite you to Google the 4 horsemen to the apocalypse that occurs in dating, mating, and relating today. And those are contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And oftentimes, after the brief little honeymoon period that people experience today, the honeymoon period is so brief. But the minute that chemical reaction begins to fade a little bit, what happens is on a subconscious level, women will sabotage good relationships because they're fearful of being abandoned. They're fearful of being abandoned, to be rejected. And so they'll reject someone before that ever happens, partially because couples really don't work on building the deep roots of trust necessary to build a partnership with one another, because most humans are still operating from a very transactional, dependent way of a relationships instead of a co-creative experience. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? I hope it does. I just want to repeat that. Projections is oftentimes one of the ways men and women sabotage relationships. Unhealthy communication, violent communication, a lack of compassionate communication is one of the reasons why they sabotage relationships. And then our subconscious fears, our blocks to love, impede us because we have a fear of abandonment and we'd rather reject someone before they reject us. Is this sinking in? I hope it is. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos as well. Don't forget to hit the notification bell on your phone as well. Also, if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery, where you can have direct access to me on a regular basis. There's a link to follow me on Instagram, get all the books I recommend. Even my dating vows are all listed below. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathon Barrick of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm asking you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow. Give either of them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.